bunch of stuff today. Some of it's hidden from you right now, but we have so much to show you and tell you about today's story. Let me start off. Now, I know you can't actually answer me, but think for a moment what your favorite animal is. What is your favorite animal? I know I have asked this before because it's gotten me in trouble before, but your favorite animal, boys and girls, and think about if it just disappeared. Like, I know that'd be scary. Like we think of dinosaurs, we don't have them anymore. Well, did you know, boys and girls, that there was an event in the Bible where the animals could have disappeared, but God had a plan and he had something specific in store. We're going to begin today in Genesis chapter 6 is where our story starts. That's right, Peter, count up to 6 there. So in Genesis chapter 6, we read about the heading here says, man's wickedness. The men were wicked. Do you know what that word means, Peter? Yeah, they were bad. They were doing all sorts of evil things. The men were so evil that God actually felt, in a sense, we might use the word sorry, that he had created man. He had created man perfect to follow him, and we studied that Adam and Eve, boys and girls, they sinned against God, and we talked about that. Well, you know what? The men and women only got worse and worse, and God's in heaven just thinking about this and how it's so wicked and so evil, and he says, I can't let this happen anymore. I have to stop it. Our loving God said this sin, this wickedness can't go on. Well, he looked down at earth and he saw a man named Noah. Let me read to you chapter 6, verse 8. It says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. When God looked at all of those wicked people, he saw Noah and he said, I can't destroy him. Noah has done what's right. Noah has obeyed me. Well, boys and girls, you and I have each had birthdays before. Did you know at the time of this story where we're picking it up, Noah has had 600, not 60, not 6, not 16, 600 birthdays. Yes, 10? You're 10? Peter's 10. I learned something new today, boys and girls. Peter's 10. Well, Noah was 600 years old, and in the Bible times, at this time of Noah, the people lived a lot longer. So that was kind of normal. It wasn't abnormal for him to live to 600 years old, but Noah is 600, and God gives him a command. He says, Noah, I want you to build an ark. Now, let me explain one thing. An ark, we'll get there in just a second. Peter, remind me to come back to that if I forget. So, it had never rained. Boys and girls, can you imagine a world that never rained? The people had never seen any rain come down from heaven. They had no idea what rain was. Well, God had told Noah, it's going to rain. I want you to build an ark. So, Peter brought along an ark for us. Now, this is a kid's ark. Noah's would not have been as colorful, okay? But the ark, that's right, we're going to have to put something in it, but not yet, Peter. We're not putting anything in yet. Because where our story starts, Noah is building it. Peter, is the ark in the water? No, but don't we normally put boats in the water? Yeah, I mean, the people around, they're kind of scratching their heads going, what is Noah doing? He's building a boat, and he's not even near the water. That's just crazy. And they are thinking that Noah is crazy. Well, Noah keeps building the ark. He builds and builds and builds. Day after day, he's making it. That's right, Peter, sawing the wood. Peter, do you know what kind of wood it was what kind was it? Lion wood. Boys and girls, have you heard of lion wood? Okay, Peter has, but I have not. I've not heard of lion wood. But it was named after an animal. It's gopher wood. So he built the ark out of gopher wood, and he built it. Took a long time, boys and girls, and the people were making fun of him. They're like, hey, did you see Noah? Did you see that crazy guy? I mean, he's like building a boat and not in the water. they didn't have huge cranes. They didn't have machinery that they could just take the ark to the water. They think Noah has lost his mind. Well, this whole time Noah's preaching at the people. He's telling them, you've got to repent. You're doing wickedness. You've got to get on the boat with us. And he's encouraging the people to follow God, to repent of their wickedness. Well, Noah finishes the ark. He worked and worked at it. He finished the ark, boys and girls. This was a long project. It wasn't something that happened overnight. The ark was quite huge. In Genesis, it gives us the dimensions, measures them in a cubit. But it gives us the dimensions of how big it was going to be, about that long for a cubit. So he gives us the dimensions, boys and girls. But you know why this boat had to be so big? Why did the ark have to be so big, Peter? Yeah. Well, God wanted to protect Noah and his family. God also wanted to protect the animals. So Peter brought along some animals for us to see. And Peter, from hearing this story before, do you know how many of each kind of animal he brought along? You forgot? Oh, Peter forgot. Maybe we should look in the Bible and see what it says, if I can remember which verse it was in. Sorry, boys and girls, I have to flip the page. There it is. It's on the bottom of the page. Okay, it says, but with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark. So God is talking to Noah. He says, you're going to go in, and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. So he says, you're going to bring 2 of every kind, a boy and a girl, because God wanted them to be able to have babies when they got done and have more. God didn't want to destroy all of the animals. He didn't want to start over with just humans. He wanted to preserve the animals, but he knew he was sending so much rain that the other animals were going to die. So he said, we've got to save them. So he had 2 of every kind, except, now some of you are sitting there going, no, Miss Kravnik, he took 7 of some. I'm glad you're thinking, boys and girls. I always want you to be thinking about what's right and true. And if we go on to chapter 6, verse 20, it says, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep thee alive. Verse 21, and take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. For thus did Noah, according to all that commanded him, so did he. So we think about Noah building this giant ark. We think about him having room for all of these animals. He had to gather food for all of these animals. And of some of the animals, he brought along 7. And those were the animals that Noah was going to use to offer sacrifices after the flood. Yeah, that's not a fun topic to talk about, huh, Peter, the killing of animals. But we learned back with Adam and Eve that because of our sin, blood had to be shed. And at that time, Jesus hadn't come yet. So the blood that was going to be shed would be of these animals. Well, they started coming, the animals started coming, and the people, they're still making fun of Noah. They're like, look at him, now he's a zookeeper. And they are just mocking him and laughing at him. They're like, oh, look, the animals came to see what was going on. Well, boys and girls, verse 22 of chapter 6 is important. It says, thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Noah followed every instruction that God gave. Noah obeyed, even though people mocked him. People made fun of him. People ridiculed him. And in a sense, he may have even thought at some point this was crazy because he's not building it by the water. It didn't make sense. In our human brains, and in Peter's panda brain, it wasn't logical to build an ark in the middle of the land. It wasn't logical to get a bunch of animals and put them on there, boys and girls. Sorry, Peter, plug your ears a second. A bunch of animals can be smelly. So you can unplug your ears. I can't imagine what the ark smelled like, really. But poor Noah, he's on this boat and God tells him to get on and the people are still making fun of him. And the Bible tells us that God shut the door. God shut the door on the ark so that nobody else could get in. It talks about how they were in the boat for 7 days and people are still mocking and making fun of him and ridiculing Noah. But Noah did what was right. Yes, Peter? That's right. 7 days makes 1 week. You're right, Peter. Well, on day 7, it starts to rain. And that's where we're going to pick up next week, boys and girls. But what could we learn from Noah today, Peter? What did Noah do? Did Noah obey or disobey? He obeyed. Even when people made fun of him, Noah obeyed and Noah did what's right. I hope this week, boys and girls, you'll obey and do what's right. And next week, we're going to find out what happens to Noah in his ark and all of those people who stayed outside of the ark who made fun of Noah.